You want answers?
I think I'm entitled to.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Well, can you handle the truth, folks? We are dealing with nothing but truth, but of course, in a satirical way. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. We have got some doozies for you. This is the monologue and the Q&A section, and it is time to roll. It is time to roll. Let's get into this, folks. Let's start with this. Right out the gate, we called it. We called it, folks, the CIA. Up to no good, folks. But what do you expect from the CIA, right? Get this. Remember that Russian false flag? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just not buying it. That Russia is going to commit a false flag, attack themselves, and use that as an excuse to roll into Ukraine. Well, this is interesting. Right? The U.S. alleged Russia is planning a deceptive attack, a false flag attack on its own forces in order to justify its invasion, incursion, military action, right? And this story was fed straight to the CIA through Kiev, Ukraine intelligence sources. Right now, CNN. I'd like to know how CNN gets their juicy information, except we know that the CIA feeds CNN, so the CNN can report what the CIA wants. So CNN has disclosed that the big charge that, hey, false flag coming out of Moscow, right? This charge, right, of sabotage against their own forces was likely made to CIA Director William Burns during his visit where he met, right? This is incredible, folks. I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying it that Russia is going to do that. What I do think, though, is that SHTF is continuing to get hotter domestically, internationally, commercially, militarily. The CIA, you know, what I say is question authority, folks. I don't accept anything that these people say, whether it's the government, whether it's the military, whether it's the media, whether it's academics, whether it's medical professionals, whether it's educational dupes. I don't trust any of them. I question it all. And I'll ask this question. Do you think you should question them? Or do you think you should just believe what these people say, right? What has the CIA been up to? Well, we're not allowed to really know, you know, because national security, CIA, yada, yada, yada. But I've got this right here. What we do know is that the authorities are becoming desperate, absolutely desperate. They're losing control of the narrative with regard to Cerveza bug. People aren't buying it. And I don't mean 100% of the people. I'm talking about a significant percentage of the population. Where are you in questioning the narrative? Both the narrative about the dangers and risks, the narrative about the treatment and cures, the narrative about the Jim Jones juice, the narrative about misinformation and disinformation. Right? Everyone around the world is questioning. Not all of us, but everywhere, yes. Right now, over in Germany, folks, they're losing control. The government's becoming desperate, and the police are now pepper spraying and beating protesters who don't want to participate in this ridiculous game, folks. This ridiculous game. So we question them, and they respond with punishment, right? Punishment. You're getting locked down again, longer. Remember, this all started with, let's just do this for 2 weeks. Now, if you believe that they just added more onto that and that there was no plan, well, perhaps you need to go back to school on how the government works. I don't think they do anything half-heartedly. I don't think they do anything without thinking it through and having a plan from the beginning all the way to the end. Now, that doesn't mean plans can't be interrupted and they can't be, shall we say, hand grenaded into little pieces. But for the most part, they have an agenda, they have a plan, and they execute it piece by piece. They may modify it along the way, but this is all part of their plan. Now, they can screw up Social Security left and right. They can screw up Medicaid left and right. But if you think that they accidentally are screwing up the monetary system, the military, no, this is planned, folks. Now, where are you at on all this? Do you question authority? I know I certainly like to. It's one of my favorite things. And here we go, questioning authority. In the great People's Republic of Soviet Michigan, Democrats, including Governor Gretchen, they're facing some backlash because they told parents they should not be involved in what public schools are teaching. Right? And so they've reversed things, folks. People have questioned their authority. This is what they said. The purpose of a public education in a public school is not to teach kids what the parents want them to be taught. It's to teach them what society needs them to know. Once again, in my life, the word society. Who is society? Who gets to determine what society wants? Who's in charge of society? I know who's in charge of maintaining the law. I know who is in charge of discharging constitutional duties. I know who's in charge of a company. Who's in charge of society? Who gets to say what society wants or doesn't want, needs or doesn't need? Unbelievable. These people chastise us and then assume the mantle of knowing what's best for us, not only in law, matters of law and constitutional authority, but in matters of societal evolution and thought. They can F off all the way. Question authority, folks. So that's what they said about parents. You don't get to decide. You don't have to have anything to do with this. Well, they backed off. And you're going to love this quote. Folks, prep to action. Get prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Plan. You know that stuff. Get your plan. Know that 10-mile area around you. Question authority. Call them, text them, write them. Let them know, folks. Let them know. Right? This is their response when they had their question or their authority question. Quote, "We have deleted a post that ignored the important role parents play and should play in Michigan public schools. Parents need to have a say in their children's education." End of story. Now, this is what cracks me up. What is the difference between being the authority in your child's life and having a say in it? Well, if you were married to a narcissistic pig, then you might understand that having a say in something means you get to express an opinion and then you get to STFU, right? You don't really have any authority. You're just told to shut up. But no, wait, you get a say and then you're told to shut up. That's really all they're agreeing to, but they're making it sound like they're backing all the way up. Remember, SHTF, authoritative government, also known as tyranny, takes 1, 2, sometimes 3 steps forward and then takes a step back. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to step on any toes. Hope everything's fine. Yada, yada, yada. Right. That's how that works. Okay. If we can, let's keep taking a look. Oh, by the way, in just a few minutes, we're going to get to your questions. Get your questions into Jolene. And once again, thank you to Jolene. Thank you to Uman for doing a great job. Sometimes in front of the scenes, but mostly behind the scenes. I'm telling you, folks, where are we going? Are you prepared? Are you sharing these videos with others? Because you should. Now on Patreon, you get these videos and lots of links to incredible news stories. So thank you for supporting us on Patreon. $2 a month, folks, 7 cents a day. It's, I wish I could get someone to work for me for 7 cents a day. But this is where everyone kind of joins together and splits the cost on keeping the Prepared Mind Network prepared. So let's get to this, folks. We have cerveza bug, showdowns, wealth destruction, taxpayer exodus, and now this. California, folks, is weighing doubling their taxes to pay for government, 100% government healthcare, also known as single payer. I love how they make it sound like it's something. It's communist healthcare. It's garbage. But they want to double taxes and give you less, right? And also it would cover illegal aliens. California is screwed up. It wants to be the leader again. I mean, now it has to compete with Oregon, Washington. It's always had to compete with Illinois and New York, but it wants to be the leader, and they're stepping out front and destroying their country. Yeah, taxpayer exodus. Who wants to live there? Unbelievable. Last time people questioned authority in California, they sought to have the governor, Gavin dumbass Newsom, had him recalled. And what happened, folks? It took years. This is before I even left. I was signing recall notices as a registered Republican in the state of California. I wanted him recalled, right? And I can't tell you how many different times they tried to do it and it got rejected. They finally got it onto the ballot and he wins and he's back and he's just been punishing. Understand this, folks. Shit has hit the fan. We must question authority, and it pushes them back. But they're not going to quit. You can't bargain, can't reason. You can't make them change their mind. They're going to come after us and keep. Right? Question authority. It's the only defense we have at this moment. But it has hit the fan, folks. They're not quitting. They're not backing down. California, shut down, financial destruction. And this guy's talking about doubling taxes and cutting health care. Wow. Unbelievable. Oh, hot off the presses, folks. General Milli Vanilli, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Pentagon, right? The top military official in the United States of America has tested positive for cerveza bug. Well, 4 days after coming in contact with creepy Joe Biden. So the question is, right? Did Joe Biden give it to him? Where's the contact tracing? Remember how they wanted to know everything about you and put an app on your phone to know where you're at all times? And then if you get it, then someone else could get it and it'll follow everyone around it. Well, they never could come up with a computer model that could work that app. But don't you think that they could try just a little harder for dear old Gigi Biden? Yeah, I guess all that Jim Jones juice, it's working. Is it not? Oh boy, that stuff works like a champ. Protecting everybody, curing everybody, fixing the world, all of our problems. Get it now. I don't think so.
I also want to ask you about the president's mandate. There's so much opposition now.
I understand, and we all understand, how people do not like to be told what to do. They want to make their own choice and their own free will.
Is there any thought of backing off of that?
People do not like to be told what to do, told what to do.
Told what to do, told what to do. People don't like being told what to do, and they don't respect you, folks. We keep hearing that. They respect what we have to say, right? You have a say in everything. Yeah, right. Now, let's just switch gears. We're going to go international. Let's go into sports, folks. Remember, in order for SHTF of any kind to be successful, the governments need to maintain control. They need to have the people under control. And one of the ways they've done this for all times is bread and circus, food and entertainment. When they first locked everyone down, they said, don't worry, we'll deliver food to your doors if you need it. And don't worry, you've got all the free porn you can handle. right? Entertainment. Well, they really thought they had us, the people of the United States, and indeed the world, between soccer players and tennis players, and then in America, football, basketball, baseball, hockey. But what they've discovered is the rest of their programs are kind of clashing and conflicting, right? The incredible adverse reactions to the Jim Jones juice in the sports world has gotten a lot of attention. Soccer players and tennis players especially have been hit and hit hard with heart attacks, strokes, chest pains, shortness of breath. I'm telling you, folks, you got to get off those sugary drinks like the Jim Jones juice. So this guy, Novak, that's his first name, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name again. Djokovic, Novak Djokovic, that guy. Basically, he's being told, you're not coming to the French Open. French officials have said, hey, no Jim Jones juice, no French Open for you, no soup for you. So the world's #1 player is not allowed to play. And people notice that as much as if he did play. In fact, they may notice more, because really, unless you're a tennis fanatic, you don't give a shit about tennis. It's incredible. This guy is drawing more attention to tennis by saying, no Jim Jones juice for me. And how many tennis players have dropped out of the sport, have said they have myocarditis, enlarged heart pains, chest pains, problems breathing, headaches? How many have complained, had strokes, heart attacks, and died? Too many, folks. These are professional tennis players at that level. You know, there's 100 or less, and they're dropping. That's getting people's attention. Question authority, right? Now, what's interesting is, what is the opposite of that? Don't question authority. Who is saying that? People like Dr. Fawcett, the little drip, you know, Dr. Doom Dark Helmet himself, Biden, Pelosi, big tech, mainstream media. It is so pervasive, this idea that you're not supposed to question authority, that they censor us, they silence us. It is incredible. There is no end, folks, to what they're doing and the intentional destruction. What they're doing. It is, I think, very dangerous what they're doing. Let me see if I can find this. I want to make sure I quote it right. Now, you know, the Fox News lady, and her name has escaped me. I was looking for it over here off to the side, and I can't find it. You know, she likened Dr. Fawcett to Joseph Mengele, Nazi scientist who experimented medically on people. And now she has lost her talent agent, right? At that level, when you're a professional television personality, you have an agent, someone who finds work for you. They dumped her like a bad habit. You know, it's incredible, because she wanted to talk about something that people thought was important. Now, it's okay, of course, to call Trump or any other Republicans Nazis, white supremacists, but not them, not their precious leadership. Don't question their authority and who they are. You know, but we should be talking about this. Now, the Swiss Olympic athlete, Sarah Acto, she has pericarditis. Whoopsie-daisy, right? And guess what? She has been triple Jim Jones juiced. And yeah, somehow, miraculously, another super athlete has come up with another heart condition. And she says, I'm upset because we don't talk enough about this. Speaking of the things we're not allowed to talk about. You're not allowed to question authority. I remember when hippies used to scream that. When leftists and socialists, when they didn't have power in this country, they didn't want to be silenced, told to shut up. They didn't like being threatened for being a bunch of commies. But now that they have power and authority, they want to shut everyone up. But there's blowback, folks. There's a lot of blowback. 2 more House Democrats have announced they will not seek re-election this year. So we have 9 or 10 rhino Republicans who have dropped out. And I believe with these 2, we're up to 28 Democrats. There's going to be about 140 to 150 congressional seats up for re-election. No, I take that back. All 435, not the Senate seats. It's not 1/3. It is every single congressional seat. There's going to be a big swing, folks, and they're afraid. They're afraid. They don't like the fact that one of the ways you can question authority is through elections. Why do you think they're pushing House Resolution 1 to rewrite, revamp, and totally redo the American election system and design it to make sure that they, the Democrats, are in charge, will always be elected, and they will always maintain their power? I don't think I've ever heard of anything. Well, I mean, I've heard a lot. But this is an SHTF spectacular. This is the lunatics running the asylum. It is unbelievable. Yep, more Democrats dropping out. No worries. No worries there. And speaking of no worries with the media, hey, remember special counsel investigator who went after Trump for years and years over Russia collusion, Russia. Well, his star witness, folks, his star witness has pled guilty to what? An illegal scheme to funnel foreign money to Hillary's 2016 campaign. Oh, also sex crimes, right, with children. This guy is a real piece of work. He's associated with the left. Once again, why is it that this is a continuing theme with the political leftists? Their obsession with bizarre sex. You know, they're just fruitcakes. It seems like every last one of them wants their fruitcakedness to be hidden away. You know, it's incredible. And they want to hide the fact that they are communists, but not so much anymore. They're pushing the extremes, folks. They're demanding that you accept all of their authority, no matter how messed up they are. Right now, and while we're talking about, again, Democrats not getting elected, Republicans dropping out, Rhino Dan Crenshaw kind of jumped down a little girl's throat at a fundraiser because he felt she was questioning his integrity and his faith in God, whatever his faith is. And so he kind of snapped at her. And the crowd started chanting, "Let's go, Brandon," and a couple of people called him a moron. That is good. Question authority. Doesn't mean be impolite, but question authority. And it's quite incredible, folks, what is happening, how the people have had enough. They're waking up slowly. They're not waking up as fast as I would like them to, but they're waking up. They're starting to realize things aren't right. That's a good sign, folks. It's really a good sign. It's too bad, right? It's too bad that we can't just fix this ourselves. We're not allowed to do that. Where do we go on the subject of questioning authority? The people that claim to be our intellectual and moral superiors, the woke crowd, they're responsible, in my opinion, for the BLM and Antifa destruction of this country by pretending to be outraged over St. George Floyd. You know, yeah, be morally outraged if you think that that was wrong, but you don't use that as the justification for burning down cities, assaulting police, murdering innocent people, robbing, raping, looting, burning, and everything else. But they're continuing to push their neo-intellectual pseudo-bullshit superiority. I call it woke stupidity. MSNBC had a contributor on one of their little talk shows. And if you watch these shows, folks, watch it when they put a panel up there. They're looking less and less like intelligent people and more like caricatures. One of the idiots I saw looks like a caricature of Don King, who had an air hose jammed in his rectum and blown up about another 300%. Anyways, these contributors are saying that Senators Manchin and Semena are, quote, are the white people that Martin Luther King Jr., quote, warned us about. Number one, Senators Manchin and Semena are Democrats who are opposed to Democrat Joe Biden's legislation, Build Back Better, election reform, and all. This is incredible, folks. These people are crapping on themselves. They're attacking themselves. That's how stupid they are. So what makes you think, or me, that we shouldn't question them at every single turn? Right? If they can question themselves, it's just too much. House divided against itself can't stand. Yeah, well, I can't stand watching what they're doing in the House of Representatives. Crazy stuff, folks. Now, questioning authority. Does that mean that I'm saying break the law? Do harmful and dangerous things? No, I'm not recommending it, nor do I glamorize or glorify violence. But get this, folks. In the state of Virginia, 16 different school districts, school divisions, are saying they're going to keep mask mandates in place for the little children, despite the governor, the new governor, Youngkin, saying no more mask mandates. It is unlawful, right? They used gubernatorial emergency powers to declare mask mandates, and he's using gubernatorial, we're not having an emergency powers to remove it. Yet 16 different school districts are saying, we're not going to listen to you. We're going to continue with this. So is it right for the other governor, Northam, who, of course, appropriated Black culture and dressed in blackface, which is supposed to be just horrible. Anyways, that fella, was it a violation of his authority to call Cerveza bug an emergency and make all these mandates? Is it a violation of authority, or is it an acceptance of the people's rights by removing them? And is it questioning authority, or is it violating the law by forcing people, children, to wear masks when it is specifically prohibited to not? And so they're saying, of course, we're going to do what we want. We're the schools. So isn't it equally authoritative of parents to question the authority of these school districts when they say their children have to wear masks? And in fact, folks, a lot of people are continuing to say, psychologists included, that forcing kids to wear masks is psychologically harmful to them. Psychologically harmful. But be that as it may, right? We're not really focusing on that. We're focusing on questioning authority. If the school districts can question the authority of the governor, and the school districts question the authority of the Constitution, do we not have the right, the duty to question the authority of the school districts? But let's take this one step further. Do not forget, folks, that while everyone is pointing fingers, calling names, screaming and yelling as we go further and further into SHTF, the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the Attorney General has officially labeled parents. That's right. If you have had an act of sex that created another human being, you are now a domestic terrorist. That's right. Making babies makes you a domestic terrorist. And they didn't even qualify that statement. Republican parents, rural Republican parents, radical rural Republican parents are the domestic terrorists. They just said parents. That labels anyone who's ever had successful sexual copulation. Fertile anyways. But there we are. You've got to be very careful, folks, when you look at questioning authority. you also have to be very careful about not questioning authority and just accepting it at face value, right? Dr. Fawcett, do you accept him at face value? Mainstream media, do you accept them at face value? Biden, do you accept what that guy is doing at face value? How about Klaus Schwab? Do you accept him as some sort of authority and just take it? Hey, this guy's a billionaire. We have to do what he says. Any more than Bill Gates or anyone else? Right? Put me in a room with Bill Gates or George Soros or Warren Buffett. Put me in the room with any of them and then tell me I have to obey them and watch what happens. Right? Let them try and tell me what to do and watch what happens. Nothing will happen because you don't obey improper authority, period. Unbelievable. And another thing, Canadian truckers who are against this border shutdown, where they're told that if they are not fully juicinated, that they're not allowed to have their job and cross the Canadian-American border. Well, they're shutting it down, folks. So the truck drivers have shown up with mandate freedom signs, big signs on their trucks. Mandate freedom. Kind of interesting, isn't it? It's kind of oxymoronish, because where there is freedom, there are no mandates. And if it takes someone to mandate freedom, then that means we have an authoritarian system in place. But yeah, it is making a statement. Now, this came up in the R Syndicate today. What is this about? Is it about watching people try and stand up for their own rights and then slowly backing down and giving in? Or is this about creating more shortages, more supply line shortages that are artificially created by the governments? Well, it's both. They want people to stand up and fight so that there's more divisiveness amongst us. They want people to try and fight for the right, and they're expecting, because they've seen it time and again, where people stand up, get pissed off, eventually give in, bend over, and take it. All while creating more shortages, which empower the government. Because remember, Justin Trudeau, that little turd up in Canada, and Gigi Biden, the great white grandpa of DC, he's not going to go without a meal. Who hurts people? It's the little guy. The little guy, the little girl. Joe American, right? Joe Canada, Joe Six-Pack. We're the ones who get hurt in all of this. I tell you, I was out in the old Swamperoos doing some work today, and then got back in just in time to get in here. And can you handle it, folks? Can you handle the truth? Well, I know you can, but let's do this. Let's get to your questions. It's the bottom half of the hour, and it's time for the Q&A.
Are you ready?
And we're back. What is it you guys want to talk about? Reaper6 checks in and says, not sure what to do here. I need my job, but I'm not going to give an inch. I have pictures of an internal document just handed down. I need a second opinion. I wish I knew what those internal documents are. And I wonder if you're asking me what my opinion is. Now, I can't speak for you or anyone else when it comes to giving an inch. I just know that if I give an inch, they take a mile, as the expression goes. Every time the government said, just give us 2 weeks, give us another 2 weeks, just put on a mask, right? Stay at home, avoid going out. Every time they ask, it becomes a demand. Every time there's a demand, it becomes an order, a law. You can't, if you budge an inch, folks, they're going to step all over you. Right? And as far as needing a job, you bet we all need to put food on the table. We all need to pay our bills. The question is, though, who owns you, right? This question is an age-old question, by the way. What right does the government have to tax you? They have no right. All government has is authority and assumed authority. They have proper authority, folks. And what they use to enforce that is known as might. Might makes right. And that's what they've got, folks. They've got authority. Sometimes it's legitimate, and other times it's assumed. Now, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that they can tell us what to do, but when it comes to certain things, you've got to draw the line. Right? Do you need your job, or do you like your health? Do me a favor, and this is just an exercise. It's not a real thing. It's satire. Go ahead and put a good tourniquet on your leg. Cut your leg off. Right? Make sure you cinch that tourniquet down real good and tight. Cut your leg off, and you'll live. And you can eat that leg for dinner for a couple of weeks. That'll keep you alive. That's kind of ridiculous, is it not? Well, do they have a right to tell you to do something that is terrible for you and your health? And then to say, well, that'll keep you employed for a little while. That'll keep you fed for a couple of weeks until we make more demands of you. How about cutting off your other leg? Well, they're the authority. They can tell you what to do, can they not? Now, John, that's ridiculous. Well, no, it's not going to kill you. It's just cutting your leg off. Well, it's still ridiculous, John. Well, it's asking you to wear a mask just is a quality of life issue. Yeah, well, so is walking. Well, you can get around on one leg, hop around on one leg. You're just fine. You don't need both your legs, right? Help the government out here. We're just asking you to cut off one leg, then two. Hey, you can scoot around in a little cart, kind of like, Eddie Murphy in Trading Places, where he pretended to be a legless veteran. You're not dead, right? But you can help the government out. Just let the government tell you what to do. They know what's best. It's an extreme example. It is a bizarre example to use, but I think it hits the point. Question authority. Where do you stop them? Right? Because if you don't, they're going to keep pushing. Oh, you got two legs off? Good, nice job. How about one of your arms? Right? Where do you stop? Where do you draw the line? We all need a job. Folks, there's places out there that are begging for people to come and work. Begging. They can't get workers. And now there's no But there's no mandate except in the healthcare industry. So we've got a little reprieve there because someone questioned authority. But then the authorities granted themselves some special power. Don't worry. They're still going to try more mandates in the future. They're going to try and find a way. Well, you paid into Social Security. Well, then you must do what the federal government says. It's going to get nasty. Keep questioning them, folks. Keep prepping and prep to action. We got Heidi checking in. Heidi. And she asked, what do you think about fireworks as defense? Using fireworks for a purpose other than entertainment. I cannot suggest that anyone do that because it's probably illegal. But let's talk about criminals. If a criminal were to use fireworks as a defense, I don't know if they would be a defense necessarily, but would probably be a very powerful deterrent, right? Shooting Roman candles at someone, illegal, not good, not smart, would probably deter them. The explosions, concussion of that. Same with using mortar, firework mortars. They shoot up 300, 500 feet and then explode. So they call it a shell even. Yeah, they're explosive. It's concussive, but it's not. These aren't weapons of war. They're fireworks. They make a big bang, like a flashbang grenade, but they don't send shrapnel all over the place. So I would strongly discourage people from using fireworks in an illegal fashion. But you have to do what's best for you, I guess, at certain times. as a deterrent, I'm sure criminals are going to make good use of fireworks as loud, obnoxious deterrents that scare the hell out of others. Daniel says, is it possible that the powers that be want to corral everyone in one or more states? So when the war starts, they just have to nuke a few states to get the population down. It's an interesting concept, Dan. They'll never be able to take all the people of the United States and cram them in one or two states. I mean, the best you could hope is that they could fit them into Texas because it's such a large state. But what you run into when you do this is a complete and total functioning infrastructure, from water and sewer to food and electricity, because people consume electricity, and the more people in an area, they've got to be able to supply that. So it would take, in order to properly do that, decades and decades of legislation forcing people to move. But they have talked about running people into cities. This was a big deal. They wanted high density population centers, cities, and they wanted people to leave rural areas, the country, because, you know, we're bad for the planet. And they totally sidestepped the whole idea that, well, out in rural America, that's where they have cattle and hog, chickens, and we grow crops that we all eat and rely on. The leftists are idiots, folks. So never underestimate the willingness of idiots to totally screw stuff up. But not quite ready yet there, Jolene, because I'm going to touch on this population side of the question that he came up with, that Dan did. And it is something of major concern. The idea of controlling the population, the idea of limiting the size of population, is something that the Democrats and globalists, the powers that be, have been talking about for well over a century. And they're now in the position, the unique position, to have massive amounts of almost unchecked authority and a willingness and desire to do just that: lower the population intentionally. And we're looking at it with the Jim Jones juice, that is the mechanism they're using. And it is very scary, very frightening, because we're being told it does one thing, which it does not, and it is accomplishing something else quite different. Population control, genocide, sterilization. These are all concepts that Democrats love. Not the lay Democrat on the street, but the elites. Now, I will say this, though, that if you ask lay Democrats, that is the average on the street Democrat, what do you think they would say if you said, if we could eliminate half the population, what would you think of that? They'd probably be thinking in their heads, yeah, let's get rid of those rascally Republicans. So they're all warming up to the idea. And we are warming up to the idea of defending ourselves and our nation against a domestic enemy that is proclaimed, right, the Constitution and the country itself to be their enemy and to attack it. All right, if we can, Jolene, thank you so much. We'll step forward into that next question coming from David, and he says, I live in a major U.S. city, very densely populated. I haven't experienced many food shortages, though I've seen some here and there. I've heard that rural areas are being hit harder by the shortages. Can anyone corroborate? I'm glad that you threw that out there, Dave, and I would like to address it from this chair. I have been in big cities recently, big cities, suburbia, and rural areas, and I have information on all of those three as well. It appears to me that for the most part, it is rural areas that are seeing inconsistencies in stocking their shelves. One particular report was out of the Virginia, New Jersey area, where stores were hit very hard because of that snowstorm that blew in. And it was interesting, they cleared the shelves. but the store did not have the reserves in back. They didn't have inventory to replace, and that's why the shelves were emptied. Otherwise, they could have replaced things much quicker. So that's letting me know that the behind the scenes inventory is going down, while the storefront, those shelves look to be okay. I got a report out of the greater Chicago area that while their storm was going, they were okay. Not a lot of problems. I have seen intermittent stuff myself. Intermittent store shelves in suburbia and then a big city, you could say. I checked those out. I wanted to see it for myself. They seem to hold up pretty well, but intermittently, they'll have some items missing. Out in extreme rural West, on the other side of the Rockies, I've gotten reports of continuing decline in shelves and, shall we say, extra inventory at Costco and Sam's Club type stores. But it is continuing to be, I wouldn't call it a problem, but certainly a topic of concern. We've been warned, we've been told that there'll be food shortages and price increases. And I think they have come pretty close to the mark in having just those sorts of things happen. That doesn't mean panic. It doesn't mean scream, run around like a little kid with your hair on fire. Nothing bad, nothing bad. But definitely, doesn't it make you think I ought to be prepared? I don't know whether to believe the mainstream media or politicians when they say we're going to have food shortages. I'm going to question that authority up and down. Well, if they say shortages, then they mean severe shortages, or are they just exaggerating things so that people look to them to solve problems? See, I don't see political and bureaucratic types as leaders. I see them as followers. I don't see politicians as leaders or bureaucrats as leaders. I see them as followers who take their orders and follow them and then yell at others. I don't see them as leaders. There's very few leaders like Governor DeSantis. Very few leaders. We're going to see if Youngkin up in Virginia can impress me and others and the rest of the great Commonwealth of Virginia and become a leader and not just follow along. All right, let's move it on over. Let's keep moving. See what else is up there. We got Latin America preparedness. He says SSM Health in St. Louis with hospitals in Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, and Oklahoma is not using race on medical treatment. Lawyers from the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty plan to sue. What are your thoughts of the SSM Health? A health organization which has a lot of, as just demonstrated there or described, they've got a lot of hospitals in different areas. They've been threatened to be sued because they were using racial guidelines. We used to call that discrimination. Remember when discrimination was bad? You're not allowed to discriminate based on race or color. You're not allowed to discriminate on basis of religion, age, sexual orientation, none of that, right? Well, these hospitals have been using race to discriminate against people to determine who gets or doesn't get monoclonal antibody treatment. Those who are hospitalized with severe illness due to cerveza bug or flu or anything else. Very interesting, huh? So yeah, the hospitals decided that they're probably going to lose that lawsuit. Now, what I would be looking at is, well, it's not that you created that policy and then you thought better of it. You changed your mind. You came to your senses and you decided to pull it away. Should that lawsuit continue? The answer is yes. For example, if I worked for a large automotive company and the CFO was a woman, and now, do I want to describe it that way? Their policy, right, was using gender discrimination, right? We're not going to give anyone a raise if you're a male. Then we can turn around the other way and go, some automotive guy said, we're not going to give any raises to females. No raises for women. And that's it. They don't have to explain themselves, just like this hospital system didn't explain it. They just used a racial guideline. You get more points if you're a person of color. And if you're white, you don't get those points in determining whether or not you get to have them. So if a car company were to do that and say, hey, you don't get a raise, they still need to be sued, even if they've changed their policy back to non-discriminatory policies. You see, with medicine and healthcare, these policies, folks, aren't benign. People didn't get the medication they needed. They were discriminated against with. They were damaged. People got sick or died as a consequence of these policies. They need to be sued. As an example to themselves, other hospitals, other industries, they need to see that there are consequences for these policies, whether they're race-based preferential garbage, whether it's has to do with denying someone service, restaurant, food store, entertainment, whatever it is. We got a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I think that looking to the concept or idea of liberty and equality, I think those things are pretty important principles that need to be upheld. Let us move on if we shall. See what else we've got cooking. We've got William Travis. He says, man, I'll tell you, the only good thing about this crap is you can buy a gas mask without question or suspicious looks. I tell you what, I got several gas masks in my closet, or cupboard, if you will. Call it a closet. Depends on scale, right? Anyways, gas masks. If you really wanted to stop breathing bad stuff, you buy a gas mask. And I'm going to continue to promote that idea. And I don't think it's a bad idea to have gas masks. As stated, I have several, as well as additional backup canisters. I recommend getting any gas mask that accepts the universal UN part that just screws on. It just makes sense, right? You see any gas mask out there with the UN filter, you can just replace your filter with the ones they have. There you go. Just a little thought, right? I like universal things. That's why I keep my calibers to a minimum. Right? I don't need 30 different self-defense calibers. Too confusing, too much trouble. So we go back to this idea of gas masks. You bet, get them. Get them while they're hot, folks, because if something bad does happen, anything from nuclear, if there's a nuclear bomb that goes off, whether it's a dirty bomb or a clean bomb, you're going to have the potential for nuclear fallout. You're going to have fire, which means the release of VOCs, noxious gas and chemicals. Right? You want to know what I'm talking about? Go ahead and set a tire on fire and tell me about how that smells. Let's see. You're also going to have houses burning, more noxious fumes, gases, and smells. Dead bodies, not good. If it is a biological attack, well, there's your serious, it's going to be far worse, far more serious biological or chemical attack. Yeah, having a gas mask, good idea. All right, Jolene, thank you again for being patient with me. We've got a statement from Peter DeVal, and he says, I went to 2 entry-level job interviews last week for companies that have had hiring signs for months. Told no for both today. Starting to think the job shortage is manufactured also. I don't, you're pictured in your avatar, Pete, with a suit and tie. So it's a pretty good, head or bust shot there of you. I don't know what job you're applying for, but I've gone into the public and I've seen what you've seen. I've seen signs on stores, signs on businesses, wanting to hire people. People wanted. And in the most common area, the restaurant and service industry, if you go into these stores, you see not a lot of people willing to help. I've actually got up and left restaurants in the past during this COVID crap because no one was there to serve. when the waitress brought me my food in another restaurant, then she went over and picked up a mop and started mopping the floor. And I'm just like, what the hell? They're just short of help. People don't want to do the job. Now, on the higher end, I could go to something like this. I was talking with Uman the other day, and between here and there, which are a couple places I like to go, there are several companies, CNC machining. So these are great blue-collar jobs, require some education, use of a computer, understanding of machinery, and it's used for manufacturing. Anyways, these companies, they may have moved here from some other northern location because they had big cloth signs hung out on the front of these buildings, which were formerly unoccupied, and it says CNC machinists wanted, hiring bonus. So what I'm going to say or suggest, Pete, is that it depends on the field you're looking at. At least in the area I'm in, they're having a hard time finding work or workers. And on the professional side, they're having to pay signing bonuses. Now, I haven't gone and looked at executive jobs to see what's going on there, but it's hard to believe that 2 years ago, this company needed, or this country needed, a population of 350 million people to fill the positions. And that Cerveza bug came along, and we have so many people unemployed now, and we don't need those positions filled anymore. It does kind of point out a number of things that these businesses can survive on skeleton crews, but it makes me wonder, really, what has happened? Where are we going with this system? We're in big frickin' trouble, folks. We're in big trouble. Do we have a little bit more, Jolene, or are we going to wrap it up? Let me know. We got Sally Sue checking in and says, what is the filibuster and why do Democrats want to get rid of it? Well, you see, politics and process, right? There are very strict guidelines and rules in governance. And so the filibuster is a way to battle. It is a way for the minority to battle against bad legislation or ideas they think are bad legislation. And some types of legislation require a majority vote. You need 51. So, for example, in the Senate, they have 101 senators. 100 of them come from the states, 2 senators each. And then the 101st is the tiebreaker. That's the president of the Senate, the vice president of the United States. So they would love, of course, to have just a 51 or majority up-down vote on legislation. But in order to get there, a lot of times you need more votes than that, right? Say you need 60 votes or a supermajority to pass something, or to get past a presidential veto. So the filibuster is used to deny the majority what it wants, which is to ramrod shit through. And that is why it's being opposed. They want to do that. They want to ramrod this legislation through. And Senators Manchin and Semena see this for what it is. So it's not about, for them, party line politics. They see something bigger at stake here, which is very rare these days for Democrats, in my opinion. They're pretty much unified in destroying the country. So it's nice to see a couple of senators actually stand up. So they want to get rid of the filibuster so they can ram legislation through. This to give you an example of this idea of just taking up time and denying the majority its vote, they would filibuster or speak, like say you're allowed to say your piece. Everyone's allowed to say their piece. They could get up there and talk about nothing. In many cases, politicians have just cracked open the Bible and started reading page to page into the record. And basically it's stonewalling or getting nothing done in an effort to protect the country from bad things getting done. Now, when Republicans have a majority, the Democrats love the filibuster. Even Joe Biden, that's right, dumbass Joe Biden, he was all for the filibuster and said it's essential for the protection of democracy, rah, rah, rah. But when they're in charge and they want to ram stuff through, they don't like the filibuster being used against them. I see it for what it is. I do. I see it for what it is. It is a tool to be used politically to balance power. I don't really have a huge problem with it because I see the good side of it. But yeah, if you don't have the votes and I wanted to pass something, I like seeing, a conservative majority doing things to protect the Constitution. But you have powers in this country vested in the destruction of this country. And they don't want to waste another moment. They know that this 2022 election is going to be the end of a lot if they don't get H.R. 1 passed. That is their voting or voter rights legislation. They're claiming that they're here to protect the rights of voters. And I'm here to tell you their motive is to disenfranchise voters by weakening the effectiveness or power of your vote by adding in people who are double voting, triple voting, people who are dead being voted by others, illegals coming into this country voting. They want to claim that voter ID, making a voter produce an identification card, is a violation of their rights, and that we should have it to where you don't need an identification. Well, I need ID to buy alcohol. I need identification to get a loan or open a bank. I need identification to go into a bank and take any money out. If a policeman stops you, you have to produce ID. But in one of the most sacred civil acts this civilization has ever known, that is people voting in a democratic fashion, in a fair and evenly balanced system, requires everyone to be accounted for. It's interesting that Democrats don't want that. They want an unbalanced system. Just lets you know where we're at, folks. Question authority. Question what you believe. Question yourself. I question myself all the time. Right? I'm the number one authority in my life. Am I doing it right? I like to think I am, but I question all authority because chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. We'll be back with some more exciting, disastrous SHTF. And folks, it just gets crazier every day. Got a bunch of stuff that I didn't get to, but don't worry, we're going to get to it all. And if you have any doubts, any questions, just take a look outside. Look out there. It is crazy what is going on. If you tell me shit hasn't hit the fan, right, and I got a bridge to sell you and some oceanfront property in Arizona, Godspeed to you all. Semper Fi.